in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there is your heart. Your heart will be also. This reminds us that life is temporary. Don't invest your limited time and energy in what doesn't last. Choose relationships and eternal values over ego and resentment. Matthew 7:24 through 27. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine, and puts them into practice, is like a wise man who builds his house on the rock. The rain comes down, the streams will rise, and the winds will blow and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who builds his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew, beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. This reflects life can be squandered by ignoring wisdom. Emotional reactivity without obedience leads to collapse. Time matters because storms are inevitable. So the final message is, do not spend your days in quarrels and steal the breath of life, nor hide your heart behind careless words and restless worries. Make peace swiftly, speak truth simply, and treasure what endures. Walk the narrow path with intention, for life you build in the light of today is the life that will stand when the storm comes. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
How do I say goodbye to what we had? The good times that made us laugh outweigh the bad. I thought we'd get to see forever, but forever's gone away. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. I don't know where this road is going to lead. All I know is where we've been and what we've been through. If we get to see tomorrow, I hope it's worth all the pain. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. And I'll take with me the memories to be my sunshine me the memories to be my sunshine after the rain. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. I love you, Pablo.
Pablo Rodriguez, born on October 21st, 1973, in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico, passed away in his sleep December 9th, 2025. He was a beloved father, son, brother, uncle, and visionary organizer whose life was dedicated to building power, dignity, and belonging in the neighborhoods he loved. Raised in Hilmar, California, Pablo grew up in a family whose values of dignity, justice, and service shaped the course of his life. In high school, he played football at Hilmar High School, where he was known as a versatile and loyal team player. He played multiple positions, including guard, fullback, and defensive end, and was selected to play in the Rotary All-Star Game his junior and senior years. In high-pressure, nail-biting moments, Pablo would step into whatever role the team needed, even switching jerseys mid-game to move from guard to fullback. These experiences instilled in him a lasting commitment to teamwork, adaptability, and responsibility to those beside him. His early years were also marked by art, activism, and the lessons of movement building learned through his family's long connection to the United Farm Workers, including his grandfather, Gonzalo Rodriguez, who was a UFW member. After participating in UFW marches, Pablo later joined the organization as a staff member and became an aide to UFW President Arturo Rodriguez, where he helped oversee voter registration and get out the vote efforts across California's Central Valley. He used humor, culture, and identity to build political consciousness, blending sharp analysis with creativity and joy. His foundational belief that la cultura cura created an urgency to put power back into the hands and voices of residents and communities throughout Califas. Pablo carried these teachings into every space he entered as a spoken word activist, artist, a fierce advocate for working families, and ultimately as the architect of one of California's most impactful community-powered civic organizations.
He helped found Communities for a New California, which began as a conversation among friends from the San Joaquin Valley and grew into a statewide community-powered civic organization. Under Pablo's leadership, CNC grew to become a statewide organization that engaged hundreds of thousands of residents yearly. Pablo believed deeply in people, a gifted mentor. He invested in others with generosity and care, often seeing their potential long before they did. Many of CNC's leaders began their journeys as volunteers or interns he coached, challenged, and uplifted. Organizers across the country remember Pablo as a trusted guide, a dear friend, and the strongest cheerleader. And others, how he loved dancing to cumbias and was a chess wizard. Before founding CNC, Pablo served as director of the Dolores Huerta Community Organizing Institute, where he trained organizers statewide and supported political action campaigns. He later worked as a public policy analyst and communications director at J.G. and Associates. His commitment to justice also extended through board service with organizations including Americans for Democratic Action, California Calls, California Common Cause, Chicano Latino Youth Leadership Project, Community Water Center Action Fund, La Peña Cultural Center, and Liberation in a Generation.
Pablo's greatest pride was his family, and his love for them was steady and unmistakable. He spoke often of his parents with deep respect. He especially admired his mother's fierce protection, recalling with fondness the time she stormed the football field after he rolled his ankle to insist he be taken out of the game. Though he didn't agree in the moment, he loved witnessing her devotion in action. He also cherished the early morning spent working alongside his father at the construction site, and how at the end of the day, his father would ask him to reflect on the impact of what they had accomplished together. Pablo was endlessly proud of his sisters, their strength, their work, and the lives they were building, and how each one was such a leader in their own spaces. He delighted in the intelligence, curiosity, and promise of his niece and nephews, always quick to share his admiration for how remarkable he thought they were. Usually in the fall, you always knew you could find him either cheering on the Hilmar Yellow Jackets football team or tracking them on the road. He would comment on how proud he was that the second generation of children in the family were attending such prestigious universities as Cal Poly SLO, UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, and Fresno State. Pablo also became a father. He was devoted to his daughter, Alexa Victoria, whom he adopted and who lit up his life. Vicky brought Pablo immense joy in introducing him to Bad Bunny, keeping him up to date on the best lip glosses, and most of all, filling his days with the latest high school chisme. He was endlessly proud of her and cherished being not only her father, but also her confidant and a steady presence she could always rely on. Those who knew Pablo also enjoyed his sense of humor. He had a way of poking fun that was sharp, affectionate, and deeply observant, never unkind, always rooted in care. Whether as a colleague, friend, or mentor, nearly everyone has a story of being teased by Pablo in a way that made him feel seen and loved at the same time. We will miss Pablo's presence. He truly was and always will be an amazing man, son, father, brother, friend, uncle, and visionary. He left our world too soon, but we will continue his legacy he built.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ileana, and I am Pablo's niece. As he would say, I'm his favorite niece, but also his only niece. My tío Pablo is truly a special man, someone who empowered so many people simply by believing in them. One of the things I loved most about him was how proud he was of where he came from, a small town in the Central Valley. Not long ago, I had told them that whenever someone asks me where I'm from, I usually say, I'm from a small town you've never heard of near Merced. He stopped me and said, no, you're from Hilmar, you should say that. He reminded me that you never know who else might be around you and who else might be from a small town in the Central Valley, and there's nothing to hide, only something to be proud of. That was who he was. He always empowered me to be proud of where I came from and to take up space as myself. After my dad passed away, my tío quietly stepped into my life in a new way. He never tried to replace my dad, but he became a steady presence, someone I could turn to for guidance, encouragement, and support. Through his actions, he showed me what it meant to show up for someone, consistently and with love. I am deeply grateful for the way he cared for me during one of the hardest periods of my life. I also had the unique experience of working with my tío as an intern at his organization, CNC. One of the first things that shocked me was how much he valued my opinion. He would invite me into meetings that I felt completely unqualified to be in, rooms filled with people who held intimidating titles, while I was just a college student trying to keep up. In those meetings, he would often call on me and say, Ileana, it looks like you're thinking really hard about something. What is it? That terrified me at first. But over time, I realized he wasn't putting me on the spot, he was lifting me up. He genuinely wanted to know what I thought. Through him, I learned that my voice mattered no matter who was in the room. In the past couple of years at CNC, my tío focused deeply on mobilizing Latinas to vote. He believed that when Latinas are empowered, entire households and communities follow. He was intentional about lifting up Latinas to become leaders who would continue the work long after he was no longer around. He has trusted us, prepared us, and believed in our ability to lead with strength and integrity. Because of my work at CNC, I gained powerful Latina mentors who continue to guide me today, women who are carrying forward his vision that is part of his legacy. And it is something I'm profoundly grateful for. My tío empowered people to be proud of who they are, where they come from, and what they have to say. To me, he was not only an uncle, but also a father figure, a mentor, and a constant source of strength. I am one of many lives he changed, and I am endlessly grateful that I got to call him my tío. Tío, I will miss you so much. I will miss you telling my siblings, my cousins, and me stories about the things our moms did growing up that they didn't want us to know. I will miss our long conversations about politics, and I will miss your big bear hugs.
Thank you all for being here today. My family truly appreciates the support that we really, really need. Growing up, Pablo and I were always together. When I think about our early childhood memories, come flooding back, playing with my Barbies or his toy soldiers, having tea parties, flying kites, roller skating, and riding bikes. One of my favorite memories is when we were living in New Mexico. I was 5 and Pablo was 3. Back then, you have to keep in mind that there were still service stations with attendants. So one afternoon, and yes, Pablo, I'll admit it, it was my idea. I say that because throughout us growing up, it was a banter back and forth as to whose idea it actually was to play gas station and be a service attendant. So it was my idea. And so Pablo climbs into Dad's truck, got behind the steering wheel, and he told me to fill it up. So I did. I grabbed the garden hose, turned on the water, and proceeded to fill it up. And I'm sure right now Pablo's saying, Elsa, you're still finding a way to say it's my fault because he told me to fill it up, right? I did just as he asked. We took turns being the driver and the gas station attendant. All of my memories of us as kids are happy ones. We never fought. The only time I can remember Pablo and I, or Pablo being mad at me, was one day after school. As I was walking to the bus area at Hilmar Elementary, a couple of friends come running towards me yelling that Pablo was about to get into a fight. I ran as fast as I could and arrived there just in time to get in between him and the other boy that he was about to fight. I was ready to fight him myself. Pablo was so upset with me because, who wants their sister stepping in and stopping a fight? He was furious. But I was just as protective as him, as he has always been of me. As we grew older, our bond only grew stronger. And I also realized quickly how truly talented and intelligent Pablo was. He was naturally gifted. While I had to study to earn good grades, he didn't even have to open up a textbook. He was also wise beyond his years. The first big lesson I learned from Pablo was when I was in high school, or we were in high school. I was a sophomore, and he was a freshman. I came home from cheer practice to find him sitting on the dining room table with his ankle propped up on a chair. He wasn't supposed to be home yet. He was supposed to be at football practice. When I asked him why he was home, he told me he had quit. He explained that after injuring his ankle, the coach ordered him back onto the field. Pablo refused, and when the coach threatened to kick him off the team, Pablo decided to quit instead. We had been raised to respect authority, so I questioned his decision. You also have to keep in mind, as some of you know, this was the 80s when Hilmar just didn't lose any football games. So he was supposed to get back on the field. However, that day Pablo taught me something that stayed with me for life, that it is not only okay to stand up to authority, but it is actually our duty to do so, especially when what's being asked of us is unjust. Later, of course, the coach came back and apologized and convinced Pablo to return to the team, and he did. That was the first of many lessons that my brother taught me. Even though I'm older, I always went to Pablo for guidance and support. After I lost my husband, Edgar, my dependence on Pablo grew. He always answered the phone anytime I called, always starting with, "What's happening?" He knew that if I was calling, I needed him, and he never failed to be there and answer that phone. Anything that wasn't urgent was usually a text, but a call meant I needed advice, and most of the time, It had to do with one of my kids. Pablo was not just an uncle. He became a co-parent. Pablo, what am I going to do without you? I genuinely do not know. I miss you so much. I miss your big bear hugs, your all-encompassing hugs that wrapped me in love and made everything feel okay. And your smile that just lit up a room. You being gone is so unfair. You're supposed to be here. And yet at the same time, I feel that you were too good for this world. This world doesn't deserve you. But this world is better off because you were here. Pablo, your legacy is one that is unmeasurable. And as Dad would say, se nota que estuviste aquí. Rest in power, Pablo. I love you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ruth Rodriguez, and I'm one of Pablo's sisters. As you can imagine, these last few weeks have been a very challenging time for myself and my family. As I tried to organize my thoughts and get my remarks together, ready for today, I just kept thinking, how am I going to do justice to Pablo in just a few words? As you all know, Pablo is very smart, great with words, so I started to just think about what would he tell me if he was here? Because just like Elsa, I went to him for a lot of things, if not everything. And we talked a lot about work, and we talked a lot about public speaking, because we both got paid to do that for a living. And so something he taught me a few years ago is his idea of, it'll come out the way it's supposed to. He really appreciated when people would do public speaking without notes or to speak from the heart. So that's what I'll attempt to do today. A couple years ago, I got into a really interesting discussion with Pablo, where he tried to convince me that I was smarter than him. In no world will I ever be as smart as Pablo. As Elsa said, we joked throughout our childhood and adulthood that any creative gene our family pool had to offer, Pablo received. He got every creative gene possible. So as you can imagine, I would go to him for a lot of advice because I knew he would have such creative answers. And so a lot of it was work-related. And just last week, I got off the phone with my boss discussing a very important decision that I had to make. And my instant thought was, I need Pablo's advice. And realized I couldn't go to him. So I went to the archives of advice that he'd given me in the past to help me move forward in my decision with work. Because he was an advice giver, he was a role model, he was a brother. He was somebody that impacted so many people's lives, both personally and professionally. And he was a cheerleader for many of us. I know he was literally my biggest cheerleader. That's why he tried to convince me that I was smarter. But I never was and never will be. It brings me a lot of comfort to hear stories from families and friends these last few weeks describing Pablo just like I would. Because he was also such a great caretaker. He loved to take care of us. Pablo was also about conveniences. He loved the convenient things. He loved valet. He loved... Right? You probably heard him be mad when there wasn't a valet available. So he was my valet, honestly. Over the summer, my refrigerator broke down, and a couple days later, he said, hey, are you looking for fridges? And I sent him a couple screenshots of refrigerators I was looking at. And he said, don't worry about the price, I'll buy it for you. And my very feminist attitude in my head thought, I'm a grown-ass woman, I can buy my own refrigerator. And later on that day, I was telling a friend the story, and it hit me. I'm his little sister. I may be 49, but I'll always be his little sister, one that he wants to take care of. So to nobody's surprise, the day that I texted him to tell him it had been delivered and installed, he said, are you home? And I said, yeah. He said, great. I'm placing an order for DoorDash right now for your groceries. Then, as the DoorDash delivery guy approached my house, he's walking up with 4 really big, heavy bags, and he's struggling to carry them to my front porch. And I just say out loud, dang, those are 4 big bags. And he said, there's more in the car. So of course, I just smiled and thought, of course there's more in the car, because they're from my brother. He just always wanted to take care of us and take care of me. Many of you also know that we lost our dad just a few months ago. So now I have to figure out how I'm going to live without two very important men in my life, the men that I went to for so many things, and the men that gave us so many things as well. Thank you, Pablo, for everything you did for me, for our family, and our community. Your impact will be felt generations beyond today. Thank you, and I love you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Liz. I'm the youngest sister of the family. I'm the baby. Thank you so much to everyone that is here. Muchas gracias a todos que están aquí. We have felt a lot of love and comfort from so many of you, so we appreciate you very, very much. Thank you. Today, I would like to share a letter that I wrote to my brother. I'm not as experienced as Ruth. I need my notes, but I'm going to share my letter that I wrote to Pablo. Dear Pablo, I can't express in words how deeply sad and heartbroken I am knowing you are no longer here. I reflect and think about what a truly amazing man, son, friend, colleague, tío, and brother you have been. I have always been proud, and I will forever be proud to be your baby sister. As long as I can remember, you were a brother who always took care of us. Do you remember that time you walked 5 miles in the snow, uphill both ways, just to buy a gallon of milk? I was about 3 years old and there was no milk at home. Mom sent you to the store. We didn't have a car at that time, so unfortunately you had to walk porque la niña necesitaba leche, and that niña was me. Now we know it wasn't snowing in Hilmar. He wasn't walking both ways uphill. But that's how we joked about it throughout the years. This wasn't a one-time occurrence, though. It did happen several times. Pablo was sent to the store to buy milk and things for the family. We didn't have a car, so he did actually walk a couple miles there and a couple miles back. And obviously, life was certainly hard back then. And still, you were always there for me through the moments of growing up and into adulthood. Pablo, I always admired your intelligence, your artistic abilities, your poetry, and all the talents you possessed. We always joked about how you were blessed with all the creativity and wonderful artistic gifts in the family, while the rest of us sisters, well, we got none. I often said, one day, I want to be just like you, Pablo. Thank you for the advice and support you gave to me and to my boys, Sergio and Max. You were a father figure to them both, and you were there for us time and time again. I am eternally grateful. You made an impact on so many people, but especially on your baby sister. I will miss your messages about football on the weekends, your texts expressing frustrations with the Niners, or when you'd ask who was watching college football and say things like, hey, did you guys see that hit? Hey, did you guys see that incredible catch? I will miss our conversations at the table, how we joked and laughed together, and I'll also miss learning about our ancestry through your deep dives into our family heritage. Most of all, I will miss picking up the phone, hearing your voice on the other end. I'll miss seeing you enter the room, saying, "What up, China?" followed by a big ol' hug. Your voice will forever echo in my heart. With all my heart, thank you for always showing an incredible strength of love and for loving us fiercely. I will miss your smile, your laugh, and your heart. Le das un abrazo y un beso a mi papá. I hope you're playing a good game of chess together while listening to Pedro Infante and enjoying some really spicy chilaquiles, bien sabrosos. Te quiero mucho, Pablo. I love you. Your baby sister, La China.
Hello, everyone. I'm Esteban Juarez. I am Pablo's eldest nephew. My tío Pablo was an amazing human being. He was one of the most generous, kindest, and thoughtful people that I knew. His generosity was something that always stuck with me. My tío Pablo was willing to help anyone that needed his help and give to those who needed it. There are multiple instances where I asked him for help, and he would go above and beyond to help me. One of my last interactions with my tío Pablo was highlighted by this generosity and his thoughtfulness. At the start of the year, my laptop had stopped working, and I needed it for school. I had made it through most of the semester with my iPad, but a laptop would have made everything schoolwork a lot easier. The iPad was not the most fun to use, and I really missed my laptop. So I reached out to my tío because he had mentioned he had old laptops, and then I reached out to him and asked him if I could borrow one or buy one from him. Then he mentioned to me that his laptops that he had were not the best for the programs that I may need for work or school. We then sent messages back and forth for about an hour, talking about different solutions for my issue, like him offering to fix his own MacBook and lend it to me, helping me buy a new MacBook, or just buying a MacBook docking station, which would have temporarily solved my issue until I could permanently fix it. The Apollo would then continuously reach out to me with more and more possible solutions all the way until Thanksgiving when I last saw him. This interaction highlights the type of person my tío Pablo was. Although it was simple, if you reached out for help or guidance, he would go above and beyond to help you, and thoughtful about it. My tío wouldn't settle with the easiest or simple solution. He was thoughtful with how he'd help you by making sure the solution addressed all your needs, no matter how difficult the solution may be. I love my tío, and I'm going to miss him. I am proud of the human my tío was, proud of the man he was, and I promise to be as helpful and as generous as he was. I love you, tío.
My name is Sergio Romero. I'm the second eldest of Pablo's nephews. There are so many things that I could say about my tío Pablo and not enough time of the day. In a world where my dad was in and out of my life during the majority of my childhood, I remember tío Pablo being someone I saw and still see as a father figure. He would always give such good advice to which I would follow because I had so much love and admiration for him. Frankly, there were times I looked up to him more than my own dad. My tío loved to spoil his niece and nephews. He once came to visit my cousin Ileana and I while I was attending Cal Poly and Ileana UCSB. He rented out this super nice Airbnb, all the fanciest Airbnb you could possibly imagine, right next to the beach in Santa Barbara, and I remember being in awe of how nice the house was. That weekend at the Airbnb contained some of the best recent memories of him. I remember he told me while we were there, "I'm glad you're here, mijo," or "It makes me happy that you're here," while at the Airbnb. And almost every time I would see him, and it was such a small thing to say, but it always made me feel seen and loved. One night he told me one night at the Airbnb, he told me he had brought some extra computer monitors that he had, and he asked if I wanted to take one. I was hesitant at first, and I remember him saying, "Mijo, if I offer you something, never say no to me." And it's like he could read my mind because it sounded like a threat. And after a pause, he said, "I know how that sounds, so let me clarify what I mean. You shouldn't feel guilty for saying yes to these nice things I'm giving you, even if you feel like you don't need them. I'm giving them to you because we didn't have nice things growing up, and you deserve to have these resources." And he knew I liked nice things too, because as a kid I would get excited if a restaurant had cloth napkins. So he'd make sure any restaurant we'd go to had cloth napkins. During that same trip, we also bonded over the absences of our fathers during our childhood in certain moments. During that conversation, it seemed like my tío had already identified exactly what his trauma was and how to deal with it moving forward. It always felt like he had the answer for everything. And when he didn't, he wasn't afraid to say, "I don't know, mijo, but let's see if we can come up with something together." I'm recently going through a breakup, and I so badly wish I could ask him about everything that's come with it. As many of you know, he had a way with the ladies, and he would often keep those relationships when they were no longer romantic. So he's not a bad person to go for advice from. I'm just so curious what he'd have to say about my situation and what wisdom he'd give to me about moving on. I still question if I made the right choices or if I'm handling everything correctly, or if I should hold on to some sliver of hope. And every piece of advice or lesson he ever taught me always felt like it came from a past experience, which made me feel all the more loved to be receiving it. And my tío loved talking about his experiences with his niece and nephews, and our culture and our family tree, and it definitely rubbed off on us. To me, Pablo Rodriguez was never just another uncle you would see every now and then on the holidays or every other weekend. He is and always will be my tío Pablo. Unfortunately, Tony will not be making it to this next part, so the next person to speak will be Armando.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. My name is Armando Elenes. I am the Secretary Treasurer of the United Farm Workers, but also a friend of Pablo's. And, Pablo and I, we went to Hilmar High together along with his sister Elsa. And it's a very small community, as Ileana mentioned, about when you go to Hilmar, you talk about having maybe one or two lights. But he was 1 year behind me, and Elsa was in my graduating class. We had about, I forget, it was about 100 of us only in the graduating class. So you literally pretty much get to know every single kid in the entire school, whether you're a freshman or a senior, And back then it was a very small minority. It was like 10 of us, 10 Mexicans, I would say, and we would count the Nicaraguans and Guatemalans in the group. And we'd all get together in the corner right there in the high school parking lot, and we were surrounded by, all these kids and watch all these, kids that had flashy new trucks, grower kids, Portuguese kids, and we were just a small little group, And I joined the UFW in the summer '97. Pablo and I ran into each other a few years later, while he was working for the Dolores Huerta Foundation. And we often joked about the improbability of two kids from Hilmar working for the farm worker movement. And we just, reminisce about the impact that had. And now, Pablo, worked at the UFW headquarters in La Paz, in Keene, California. He was part of a young group of people that joined recent high school graduates who helped out with voter registration efforts, with campaigning against Proposition 187, the anti-immigrant proposition, with campaigning for Kathleen Brown for governor, and taking part in organizing drives. As mentioned earlier, he was also served as Arturo's assistant. We worked together a little bit when I was asked to do a route for a march that we were going to start in Merced in 2002. We were going to march from Merced to Sacramento, and so they naturally gave it to me. They said, well, you're from the area. I hadn't been here in a couple of years. And so, this was the March for the Governor's Signature in 2002, which was what won a landmark legislation for the binding mediation law, which allowed union contracts to be hammered out when growers and the workers wouldn't be able to agree. And I was tasked as the march captain. I was tasked with coming up with the march route again, and I was having a hard time figuring out how to get across the Merced River, because we had to walk. And I was like, I knew there was a route. I was like, I only could think about the bridge coming down Lander Avenue. And I said, well, we can't do that. So I called Pablo, and I said, hey, how the hell do I do this? This is before Google, And so I called Pablo. He's like, hey, there's a bridge. I'm like, what bridge? Oh, there's a bridge. You just have to drive over there, and you can walk across it. I was like, en serio? And I said, yeah. He's like, oh, all I had was my Thomas Guide maps, the little maps I was buying at the store. And so sure enough, I drove over there and walked over, and Pablo showed me. He's like, yeah, you just park your car and you just walk over from Livingston to Delhi. I said, okay, that solved my problem. And the other problem is we had to form committees. We had to form a support committee. So I started asking Pablo, like, hey, Pablo, I was like, I don't really know anybody anymore. So he gave me a bunch of contacts from Maggie Mejia, from Carolina, other people that, that he knew, and those people that helped us form committees. That was Pablo's efforts, Pablo's contributions to that march. And also in 2002, he was one of the first people helping to build the Farm Worker Voting Project. His goal was to turn out what were called ag districts into rural legislative districts, into agricultural worker districts. We were tired of seeing these valleycrats, lawmakers who voted, for the most part, with Democrats, except when it came with farm workers. And so Pablo ran the organizing in the northern San Joaquin Valley, setting up house meetings and building committees that registered voters and mobilized voters. Later, Pablo's skills at analyzing and using political data, his commitment to ensuring rural communities had the most updated political technology, his organizing skills, and his dedication to a team of cohesive organizers. All that played an important role in transforming California ag districts to include agricultural workers. And we've seen this transformation over the last 20 years, right? In part because Pablo's efforts. Today a majority of Democrats, state legislators, from all the Central Valley ag districts, vote for farm worker-friendly legislation for the most part. That is Pablo's impact. It's more, he applied his talents to helping design all of our statewide campaign literature, including reminders to vote on Tuesday, November 5, and creating a cool graphic. Earlier talking about the creative, talents he had. He created a cool graphic to go along with voter materials, with the clever Spanish terminology. And then there a major organizing campaign in 2017. Again, we needed Pablo's help, so I reached out to Pablo. I reached out to Elsa. We were looking for a space to work out of for an organizing plan. And I was able to talk to Elsa, and Elsa, with Pablo's urging, because he's like, hey, Elsa lives in Livingston. I said, oh, okay. And so, Elsa and her family, Edgar, and they loaned us their house. And who does that? They said, oh, Armando, you guys can work out of our second living room right here. And so we had a group of organizers working out of the house, and that's where I got to meet the kids. Obviously you were very little back then, but, and then Pablo would come down and he's like, oh yeah, and he'd be talking about football, and he's like, hey, there's a football game tonight, are you coming? I was like, no, I got some other work to do. But, that's what he would do. Pablo, he organized the same way he lived his life, with creativity, with imagination, with deep compassion for the underdog and the vulnerable, and with steady, well-grounded logic and hope. People knew him as a gentle giant, and with a gift for humor, insight, and storytelling. Most importantly, he helped build a lasting organization, deeply rooted in the community. He contributed a vital role in elevating our people in the Central Valley of California into a force in electoral politics, a force that is helping reshape the state. And he trained and inspired new generations of organizers who are continuing those labors now and in the future. He liked nothing more than pointing out by name something impactful one of his team of organizers had done, and what a rich legacy he leaves behind. Que viva Pablo. Sí se puede. Gracias.
Buenas tardes. My name is Carolina Alfaro, and I'm una amiga de Pablo, and I'm here representing Teatro Los Hijos del Campo, a Chicano theater troupe here in our Central Valley.
I won't use the mic. I'm Jaime, better known as Jamon, part of the Rudos group Pablo helped organize out of the Aslan bookstore.
Today, we gather with heavy hearts, but also with deep gratitude to Pablo, our hermano en la lucha. Many of us here today met Pablo in the early 90s, either at a protest, a marcha, or at Henry's Atzlan bookstore, downtown Modesto, where I personally first met him. It was when Prop 187 was happening. Atzlan bookstore held space for us local Chicanos to come together and process what was impacting our comunidades. It was during that time that an artist collective, Los Rudos, was born. Most of the Rudos had some type of nickname. For example, Jaime was AKA Jamón. We had Jose, AKA Rascuache, Arturo, el Turtle, Vero, la Mera Mera, Victor E, el Greñudo, Henry, el Henry from Atzlan bookstore, El Pancho, Panchis or Panchito. Later on, it was La Destiny, and then the baby of the group, La Jasmine, and so many others. Pablo tried to give himself his own nickname. And forgive me for saying this, but he wanted to be El Pinche Pablo, with the capital C-H-E, like Che, as Che Guevara. But all the Rudos said, Chale, it's a collective, and you gotta earn your stripes, homie. So they named him Pablo Nerudo, similar to the famous Chilean poet Pablo Neruda. To us, he was our own local Chicano poet from the 90s. Pablo liked sharing knowledge through education, through artivism, getting across this message of justice everywhere he went. He carried his creativity not just as an artist, but as a way of being in this world. His poetry and spoken word pieces uplifted, educated, and made us feel so confident in our time of uncertainty.
Los Rudos en Teatro Los Hijos del Campo, the Stan State, collaborated on countless floricantos together at the Aslan bookstore, Stan State, youth conferences. Pablo was co-author. He wrote plays. He did a lot of the stuff that we wrote, along with, Vero, Victor, we did a lot of stuff. Pablo had us traveling up and down California, even to Texas. That was Pablo. He loved what he did. I mean, we have a script here, but speak from the heart. He did a lot. So he overbooked us. But we went along with it because it's what Pablo did. And we performed in front of 5, 10 people, up to a couple hundred people. But we did it because it's what we did. And we like educating people, getting the message across. Believe it or not, we would come out in lucha mask. We would come out as wrestlers. We would wear our masks and stuff. And yeah, it was cool. Pablo was, he was that, that inspired us. He inspired me when I was in Mexico. As the Rudos, I was the historian. I was always taking pictures and filming, but then I wanted to be a part of it. And I would call him from Mexico when I was studying abroad, and I would call him and I'd tell him I'd have stuff. Like, since when have you when you're not part of the group? Well, I'm the historian, fool. What's wrong when I'm not part of the group? But yeah, that was Pablo. He inspired me.
He inspired everybody. He used satire to get across through all these characters. He and the other Rudos gained so much love and respect from community members and folks that were part of the, what we call the OG Chicanos, folks like from the RCAF, the Royal Chicano Air Force or Air Front, the artist collective from Sacramento that was co-founded by El Maestro Jose Montoya. He was also quick to recreate lines and songs that made better sense to us Chicanos. So for example, that Pitbull song, No Pares, Sigue, Sigue, well, it was quickly converted by Pablo to No Pales, Chiles, Chiles. And it stayed that way. Pablo believed deeply in La Cultura Cura, culture heals. In fact, he used to carry a book of drink cultura by Jose Antonio Burciaga around town or just to pass down to others, especially if you were from like Texas or the northern part. He's like, oh, you're from the northern part? Okay, have you read Drink Cultura? And it was like a Chicano starter kit. And wherever Pablo went, that belief went with him, like many Chicanos and that he looked up to. He also had this belief similar to that of, our older Chicanos like Cesar Chavez, this philosophy of nonviolence and the power of education. As a spoken word artist, he proved what was possible when love, cultura, and justice can coexist. His contributions helped marginalized communities feel seen, heard, and valued. He always went that extra mile to ensure that the work of Los Rudos was also seen. And as Jaime mentioned, they were always booked with gigs. And he did not like to let other people down. He didn't want to cancel shows. One memory that I personally have was one summer, Pablo and Rascuache had committed to a show in San Jose to perform a few actos at some type of conference. Jaime and I were not able to attend. I had just recently started my first professional job with Modesto City Schools, and I had just purchased a new Mitsubishi Galant. Pablo was driving a small old pickup truck at that time that was barely making it up and down the 99. So Pablo calls me that morning and he says, Caro, I know it's last minute, but do you think we can borrow your car to go do this show in San Jose? It's for a good cause. And I didn't hesitate and I said, sure, but as long as you're driving, because Rascuache, I don't know if I trust. So I said, can you be back around 5? That's when I'm off. And 5 o'clock came around, and I ended up having to drive his troquita home. Now, let me preface by saying that it was over 100 degrees at 5 p.m. here, yes, in the Central Valley. And so I got in the troquita, I started driving home, and when I reached down to roll down the window, there was no handle. So then I turned to the right, and there's no handle, but there's pliers on the floor that they use to roll down the window. So I just said, screw it, I just keep on driving. I'm sweating. I got home all sweaty. And then they got to the house to drop off my car, and he says, you know what the best part was? He says that we were in a car that had air conditioning.
One of my favorite memories of Pablo. We're big guys. We were foodies. I still am. But back in the day when Mervyn's was still open, there was a little joint called Sidelines. Chicken wings, and then they had some good pear cider. That's what I liked the best, right? We went in and then we started looking at the menu, and then we came across chicken wings, right? They had firehouse, extreme hot, right? And like me and Pablo look at each other. Dude, this is the Gabacho establishment. How hot can they be? We're Mexican. We like spicy food, right? Yeah, we can handle this heat, bro. No problem, right? So we ordered 24 wings. Extreme hot, firefighter hot or whatever, right? We started drinking pear cider and, started chit-chatting. And then they brought us out this chicken wings, right? And the cook was like, hey, you guys sure about these wings? Oh, yeah, we got these, bro. We'll finish them in no time, right? Okay, cool. Left them down on the table. All right, me and Pablo started digging in. On the first one, we're in a church, right? So I didn't start praying, but I started saying some choice words. And Pablo, he was digging in too, but he didn't realize he had some of that hot sauce on his hand. And he was sweating. Pablo likes to sweat, right? What does he do? He wipes his eye. But with chile in his finger. Poor guy started crying on me. I'm like, dude, ¿qué pasó? What are you thinking? Why are you crying? I got this pinche chile in my eye. I'm like, oh shit, bro, I'm bad. And then he took off to the bathroom, right? And I stayed on the table trying to douse this heat. So I got the pear cider, the pitcher, I started drinking it. And then that didn't do nothing. The ranch was on the table. I started drinking both the little containers of ranch. That didn't do nothing. And then I went to go follow Pablo because Pablo was still in the bathroom crying. And I'm like, bro, come on, man, let's go. We're Mexican, dude. Just kicking our sorry. This is kicking our ass, bro. This can't happen. So he cleaned up a little bit, but he was still crying. We went back to the table, and it's like the owner, the chef came out. You guys need a fire extinguisher? No. No. But you got any milkshakes back there? It's like, yeah, I'll get you guys a milkshake, and I'll extinguish these, chicken wings for you. I'll clean them up and deep fry them, please. And then on the way home, it's like Pablo, pobrecito, he's still feeling the heat, But we're Mexican, right? We're not gonna cry. Hey Pablo, hey bro, I gotta go to the bathroom. Oh hell no, you're not going to my bathroom in my house. Pablo, my house is right. Like you just drove by your house, bro. Turn around, go to the. Nah, bro, you ain't going to the house. No, I'm taking you home. I'm like, come on, bro, let me go to the. Nah, bro, you just had. No, you just ate some chicken wings that we couldn't handle. No, you're not going to the bathroom in my house. You're going home. I'm like, come on, bro. But yeah, those, he's gonna live for us, in our hearts forever. Those memories will carry him, beyond times. Deeply missed, and we're here to honor him.
Pablo will always leave a huge legacy in our community, especially to a lot of the artists here in the Central Valley. He made an impact on so many of us, and we're going to continue to honor him through Floricantos, through the love for artivism, through the love of building relationships with the humble heart. Te agradecemos, Pablo, por haberte cruzado a nuestras vidas y por las enseñanzas que nos dejaste, muchas veces momentos de analizar con profundidad, porque ahí es donde crecimos y creamos. Y como decías siempre tú, dale, 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 no pierdas el tiro, porque si lo pierdes, pierdes el camino a la revolución, a justicia y amor.
Pablo, thank you for leaving us with such beautiful memories. And as we would always say in our shows, con mucho, mucho, mucho amor. We will carry you with us forever, Pablo. And like my rudos, my brothers, my sisters, when I say rudos, can we do our chant for Pablo? Rudo! 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 If you want to join, please. We say rudos 3 times. Ready? Rudo! 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 Peace, Pablo. Love you, my brother.
Thank you all for being here today. My name is Samantha Valadez, and I'm one of Communities for a New California field directors. It means so much to see everyone gathered here to honor Pablo. I joined Communities for a New California back in 2014, and at the time I was just 19 years old, still very much trying to figure out who I was and where I belonged. I had spoken during public comment at a town hall in Merced, and it was being live streamed, and I didn't know it at the time, but Pablo was watching. He didn't know me, we had never met, but the very next day he reached out to me through Facebook Messenger and asked if I could get on a call. That call changed my life. Pablo offered me an internship at CNC. What I didn't realize then was that he wasn't just offering me a position, he was taking a chance on me. He saw something in me before I saw it in myself. I worked closely with Pablo for the next 11 years, and I hold many memories from that time dear to my heart. As a young person stepping into a world that was completely new to me, community organizing, advocacy, and leadership, Pablo became my mentor, a guide, and someone that I deeply looked up to. Pablo used to say he didn't like when people thought he was grumpy or rigid. but those of us who knew him well knew something different. He was actually quite funny with a sharp sense of humor that often caught you off guard. During election cycles, Pablo was also known for letting his beard grow, and somehow so did his personality. He was more animated, more expressive, and deeply in his element. When the election cycle ended, so did his beard. That was Pablo, disciplined and serious when the work demanded it, but deeply human, playful, and full of heart underneath it all. He helped shape how I understand community, responsibility, and what it means to lead with integrity. So much of who I am today, how I think, how I organize, how I show up, carries his influence. His belief in me at such a pivotal time helped shape my path, and I know I'm not alone in that. Pablo's legacy lives on through the people he mentored, the families and neighborhoods he fought for, and the values he instilled in all of us. It lives on every time we choose courage, compassion, and collective care. I will always be grateful that Pablo saw me, that he believed in me and helped guide me when I was just beginning. Thank you, Pablo, for the risk you took and for the life-changing impact you had on my life.
Hi everyone, my name is Cassandra Gutierrez, and I'm also one of CNC's field directors. My story with Pablo began years ago in a very similar way to Samantha. After all, it was him who told her, find someone like you to help start the Sacramento office. So I'm not gonna go much into the details of that, but Pablo had a way of noticing the best qualities in people. He recognized potential. Working with him meant being trusted with real responsibility, often before we felt fully ready. But through it all, Pablo taught us how to lead, how to think critically, and how to stand firmly in our decisions, even when the path forward wasn't always clear. When I reflect on my journey with CNC alongside Pablo, I think about how young we were, fresh out of college, looking to pave our own road in this world, eager to learn and grow. Pablo was so grounded. He knew all the places, he knew all the people. His remarkable mind was like an endless roadmap marked by all the hearts and places he touched throughout his lifetime. He also knew where the good food spots were. So taking us to lunch often in Sacramento was one of his ways of welcoming us in. I bring this up because a funny but symbolic memory comes to mind. It was around 2017, and one day Pablo took us to lunch at an Italian restaurant called Paisanos in Sacramento. When it came time to order our drinks, Pablo ordered an Arnold Palmer. At the time, Samantha and I didn't know it was just tea and lemonade. We thought it was an alcoholic beverage, so we couldn't believe that Pablo was going to be drinking during work hours. So when we saw that he ordered a second Arnold Palmer and then a third, Samantha and I started to worry silently because he was a driver. So we didn't want to say anything because we didn't want to offend him. We were young and still, finding the best way to speak up. When we left the restaurant, we sat back in the back seat, exchanging worried looks the entire drive because we thought he might be a little tipsy. Shortly after, when Pablo found out that we thought he was drunk from the Arnold Palmers, he laughed and teased us endlessly. He would say, "Oh my God, you guys, you were really going to let me drive drunk?" It became one of our favorite stories throughout the years. Over time, I realized that memory was not just funny. It reflects an early moment in our journey at CNC alongside Pablo, not just as our boss, but as our mentor, He was always teaching us something, often without us even realizing it, besides learning how to distinguish between alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, of course. He also taught us how to be independent, how to find solutions, and how to trust ourselves. He created the space at CNC for us to grow, and we did. And he taught us not to fear new challenges. And standing here today, nervous and emotional, I can also hear him reminding us, as long as you get your point across and people understand you, it doesn't matter how you deliver it. So those words still echo in the corners of my mind when I need them the most. So today, we speak with that in mind, with gratitude for his guidance, his laughter, and the quiet ways he taught all of us to believe in ourselves. Thank you, Pablo.
I just want you to know I have my Arnold Palmer in my office. So I met with the Rodriguez family just a little over 6 weeks ago as we were planning their father's funeral. Pablo was proud of his dad. He was proud of his family heritage. He took the time in our discussion just to let me know a little bit about his family, where they had come from, the hard work that was instilled in all the kids, the value of service. He was thoughtful with his words, and now I'm getting to know him a little more through other people's eyes and see that he had a huge sense of humor. But he wanted to communicate just the right thought. He took the time when he wrote his father's eulogy, he read it in Spanish, but he translated it into English so I knew what he was saying. That was thoughtful. As the family discussed how to best honor his dad, Pablo was drawn to Jesus' teaching from what we call the Beatitudes. It's found in the Gospel of Matthew. Ruben read a few of those passages. But at the very beginning of this chapter, Matthew writes, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs are the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." It was verse 9 that particularly drew Pablo's attention. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. He said, this is who my dad is. But I know as I've gotten to know him and got to spend a little time with him and read about all the things that he was involved in, it was also a reflection of who he is. We often think about peace being the absence of conflict. But when we look around in our world, we realize that that is impossible here on earth. In the original Greek language and in the Hebrew, it has a much fuller meaning. It'd be translated as shalom in Hebrew. It refers to something that is complex with a lot of pieces that is in a state of completeness or wholeness. The core ideal of shalom is that life is complex and full of moving parts and relationships and situations. And whenever any piece is missing or broken, our shalom breaks down. As a verb, it literally means to make complete or restore. It would be used such as when rival kingdoms who made shalom, they not only stop fighting, but then work towards the other person's good. True peace or shalom requires taking what is broken and restoring it to wholeness. That reminds me of Pablo. True shalom is found only in Jesus Christ. He was called the Prince of Peace. Jesus was sent to give us the life of love, joy, hope, and peace that God intended for us to live from the very beginning of creation because he loves us. Through his ministry, death, and resurrection, Jesus made forgiveness available and the possibility of a restored relationship with God. When we have faith in Jesus, we experience forgiveness. Our relationship with God is restored, and we are empowered by God to be shalom makers. Pablo was a peacemaker. He brought people together and addressed what he saw broken in our communities, seeking to restore them to wholeness. There was a spoken word about him wanting dignity brought to every single person. That is wholeness, because we are all created in the image of God. Pablo combined his God-given passion, his gift, and his vision to serve others and to bring God's shalom so that others might experience God's peace. It may seem impossible right now in this moment to know how to go forward without Pablo, without his strength, his courage, and his leadership. Yet the vision Pablo had of bringing God's shalom to others is realized a little more every time we follow Jesus' teaching in restoring what is broken. When we seek to bring healing to a relationship, when forgiveness is offered and received by ourselves, when we use our voice to speak up for the vulnerable. Today we remember Pablo and celebrate the resurrected life he has in Jesus Christ. He now stands in the presence of God, fully restored, with his humor intact. A life of shalom is offered to each one of us through faith in Jesus Christ, believing that Jesus' life, death, and resurrection has conquered the brokenness we find in our world. It has conquered both the power of sin and death. Each of us are invited to respond to God's invitation to be peacemakers and to be called children of God. Will you pray with me? Loving God, your eyes are always upon us, nurturing us through all the days of our lives, sheltering us by your grace and preparing a special place for each of us in eternity. We thank you that you have made each of us in your own image and have given us gifts and talents to which to serve you. We thank you for Pablo, the years we shared with him, the good we saw in him, the love we received from him. He brought joy to a world that knows too many tears, kindness to places filled with hate, friendship to people who needed a shoulder to lean on, and the support of an embracing arm. Welcome him, merciful God, into your joyous eternal home. We ask you, O God, to be with Pablo's family and friends as they walk through a valley of deep shadows where it feels as if the sun will never shine. Let the bright light of your love and compassion reflect in all the deep, dark crevices of their continuing journey. Lift them from the depths of sorrow and pain. Allow their feelings of loss to be surmounted by comforting memories of good times spent with Pablo. Lead them beside the still waters of peace and anoint them with the oil of faith. We ask these things in your name, in the name of your Son, Jesus, who came into the world that we might have unending joy and eternal life. Amen. We know that there are probably, each of you have multiple stories about Pablo, and we will have a time during the reception of sharing. But as we end the service right now, we ask everyone to remain seated until the family has exited. But we also want to invite you over to a reception just across the way in our family center. So as you go out, may the peace of God, which passes all understanding, guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Amen.
Enséñame a cómo estar sin ti, que me olvidé cómo se respira la vida sin ti. Te necesito cerca. Me lastima, no sé cómo evitar las ganas de llorar esto es mentira. El cielo está de fiesta, pero si abajo miras, los tuyos no lo están, no quieren celebrar, los tuyos no te olvidan. Te necesito cerca, que lejos me lastima. No sé cómo evitar las ganas de llorar. Dime que esto es mentira. El cielo está de fiesta, pero si abajo miras, los tuyos no lo están, no quieren celebrar, los tuyos no te olvidan.
¿Cómo explicar que las noches son tan frías, que no acepto tu partida, ese viaje sin final, y que no volverás, que no hay marcha atrás? Tengo que despedirme y dejarte ir en paz. Hoy el cielo se ilumina, un nuevo ángel hoy me cuida, porque Dios así lo quiso. Ahora sigue tu camino, que tal vez en otra vida nos volvamos a encontrar, nos volvamos a encontrar. Y cómo olvidar ese último beso antes de partir al cielo. Hoy lo guardo aquí en mi pecho, lleno de tantos recuerdos que jamás podré olvidar. Hoy el cielo se ilumina, un nuevo ángel hoy me cuida, porque Dios así lo quiso. Ahora sigue tu camino, que tal vez en otra vida nos volvamos a encontrar. Hoy el cielo se ilumina, nos volvamos a encontrar, nos volvamos a encontrar.
¿Qué tal si te escapas del cielo para darme un abrazo? El abrazo que no pude darte para despedir. ¿Y qué tal si bajas un poquito para decir mi nombre? Y escuchar que platicas conmigo por última vez. Me ha pasado que veo a la puerta esperando a que llegues y me apuntes con esa mirada que siempre adoré. He intentado volverme más fuerte, pero no he podido. Se me inundan los ojos pensando si en algo fallé. Enséñame a cómo estar sin ti, que me olvidé cómo se respira la vida sin ti. Te necesito cerca, que lejos me lastima. No sé cómo evitar las ganas de llorar. Dime que esto es mentira. El cielo está de fiesta, pero si abajo miras, los tuyos no lo están, no quieren celebrar, los tuyos no te olvidan. Te necesito cerca, que lejos me lastima. No sé cómo evitar las ganas de llorar. Dime que esto es mentira. El cielo está de fiesta, pero si abajo miras, los tuyos no lo están, no quieren celebrar, los tuyos no te olvidan. Enséñame